Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special session for the Board of Education. I'm calling the meeting to order now at 6:02 p.m. In the unlikely event of emergency, please note the exit closest to where you are and silence your cell phone. Present at the meeting right now is myself, President Lisa Johnson, first Vice President Juan Leon, second Vice President Chris Neary, trustees Carol Seahawk, as well as Megan Investment. It is anticipated that trustees Leslie Kretz and Caroline Bannon will be attending the meeting. Also present at this time is our superintendent, Dr. Talbert, our assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, Mary Stevens, and our interim assistant superintendent for finance and operation, Mr. Richard Simon. At this point in time, can I have a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of reviewing the applications from the hiring committee as well as particular person's employment history?
Motion.
Chris Aaron is first.
Second.
Juan Leon is second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We resume open at 7:30 for the cell phone policy. I'm sorry, 7 o'clock for brief meeting, and then for the cell phone policy forum, which will start at 7:30. Thank you for joining us, folks.
And PM. In the event of emergency, please note the exits that are clearly marked. Take a moment and silence your cell phones, and please join the board in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Any community input on agenda items? Right, seeing none, I'm going to move forward. Can I have a motion to table agenda item 2C1, please?
Second.
Carol Seehoff is first. Leslie Kretz is second. This was discussed in executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Did you aye, Carolyn? No.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. Right. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda to add agenda item 2C2? And Mr. Leon, can you just read that resolution for me?
Yes, the resolution is to rescind the designation of New York class as an official bank depository of the Amityville Union Free School District.
Can I have a first and second on that, please?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Nearing, Megan Messman. Any further discussion on this item?
Yes, Vice President Leon, could you just provide clarity on why we're voting on this?
Yes, during the reorganization meeting, you will recall that I brought up that this financial institution was not listed as one of our official depositories last year. We had a brief discussion in open session. And also because of some previewed information that we received in our transmittal, which we all read, is the reason for this. The district basically believes that we can still obtain competitive rates at a bank that's FDIC insured.
Thank you.
Any other additional questions on this item? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to amend the agenda to add it. Now, can I have a motion for agenda item 2C2, please?
Motion.
Chris Nearing is first,
Second?
Juan Leon is second. There was a discussion already. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Can I have can I do agenda items 3B1 through 9 altogether? Can I have a motion
Yes.
for agenda item 3B1 through 3B9?
Motion.
Chris Neary is first, with Leslie Kretz is second. Any discussion on any of these items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Can I have a motion for agenda item 3F1, please?
Motion.
Second.
Chris Neary is first, Leslie Kretz is second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 7-0. We have down here about new business district goals and superintendent evaluation timeline. All right. Do we want to start the discussion? We won't be able to do the district goals tonight, but with the timeline, is it okay for the board if I send the timeline to the board this week and you can take a look at the timeline?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, so we're gonna have to circle back to, we have to maybe set another date for district goals. And one, I think that's gonna have to be something that's gonna be, it has to be a separate meeting. So therefore, everyone has an opportunity to take the time to go through it. Just one other quick thing, and I'll take any questions or comments. Just as a reminder, when you are talking, please speak into the mic more closely, because when I'm listening to the recordings, it's very hard sometimes to hear what someone has said if there's a vote. And the only time that I know is that when I repeat back who did it first and who did it second. So please make sure that you do speak into the mic closer, so it's hard to hear sometimes. Thank you. Any comments on these items?
I don't have comments on these items, but I have a few other things, if that's okay.
Sure. Yes, go ahead.
At the last meeting, we mentioned the CBAC, the Community Budget Committee. And we discussed putting the request for participation out again. And I just wanted to circle back to that to expand on the discussion a little bit more. I'd like to see that the board ask those that participated last year, if they want to continue first to maintain that legacy knowledge. So just wanted to perhaps confirm that that's what is the direction that we're taking with regards to the CBAC.
Thank you, trustee Messman. I believe that that was a little bit of a discussion from the last meeting. And that, yes, that we would definitely reach out to the individuals that were on the committee last year to see if they wanted to return again this year to be on the committee. And if not, then we would then seek more individuals for that committee.
Okay, so that's going to happen in the near future since it's the start of the new school year.
What I would love to see is to have it go out by the end of July, the latest. So therefore, by beginning of September, it's going to be in place.
That sounds good to me. End of July to reach out to the participants from last year.
By the latest. And to have a committee in place by September 1st.
Okay, thank you. I agree. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts, but I agree with that.
I'm good with that.
We had appointed Mr. Schneider to deal with the foils since we hadn't had a district clerk. And there were some outstanding overdue foils. So I was just hoping to understand the status and if everything has been resolved at this point.
Dr. Talbot?
So there are a number of backlogged foils. We have gathered the backlogged foils and have met with legal regarding some of them, and some of them are still in process. Would you like to add anything more to that, Mr. Snyder?
I'd be happy to provide the board with an update if I can get just a week to give you the full status of all the pending and outstanding foils. But we have been in communication, I believe, with all of them. There might be one out there that we're unaware of, but right now my secretary and I are working diligently to process them and get the records out.
Okay, so you're saying like within the week, we can have a comprehensive update on the status?
For your newsletter a week from
Yep.
Friday. Is that okay?
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
You got it.
I had the opportunity to go back and look at the documentation with regards to tracking Dr. Talbert's time off. And I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that we were approving vacation time.
So you gotta be careful about, yeah, because that's more of executive session discussion. Yeah.
Is that personnel? It's not like performance based.
Yeah, it's more personnel. Yeah.
So I will, I suppose, provide in writing.
Or either in writing or
In
in
the
executive
next
session
executive
discussion.
session.
Mhm.
It was not performance based. It was more for the board functionality. But
Okay.
we're saying executive session, sure.
I would just, without legal being here, I'd rather play it safe.
Okay. There was mention of potential state funding in relation to the cell phone implementation. I just wanted to clarify, like, what the parameters were, if any, around that funding.
Dr. Talbot. I thought it was in the movie notes.
Well, there was a mention of it in the news and notes, but to further clarify, if there's specifics, is it to ensure, to apply to purchase materials, or can it be implemented in other ways? Is what I was hoping to clarify.
Snyder, would you like to?
The memo that all school districts receive from SCD outlines that the SCD vendor performance monitoring application, which is something that business officials use to report data, will be the forum for how we report. Typically, what happens there is you give them a narrative of your plan, vendor-specific data with your budgets, and then it gets approved, and then you're authorized to purchase, and then the state would come in and reimburse. That's typically what happens with the vendor performance app. Did you ask about the amount, ma'am?
No, I think I remember the amount, but so you're saying, so it would needs to be applied to purchasing something.
So
It can't be.
I can expound on the eligible expenses.
Okay.
They would include lockable storage systems such as pouches, bins, or cubbies, policy development and staff training, family communication, outreach materials, translation and language access services, and student education on responsible tech usage. The Amityville's allocation was $14,639.
Dr. Talbert, is there any chance that this funding can also be applied to fix broken lockers, which we may use for our students to lock their phones in?
We were just talking about that earlier today. So if the board's policy results in lockers being a storage system, then yes.
Any other updates so we can go to the cell phone meeting at 7:30? Anything else? Anything else?
Lisa, I have one thing. So I mentioned to all of us in an email if there was any desire for any board members to visit our summer school program. I'm not sure if there is any desire. I guess I can ask for it right now and open. But before then, can I ask when is our last day of summer school?
It's August 14th.
August
Yeah.
14th.
I'm interested, yes.
All right. Is there a desire?
I did see it last year.
Okay.
And the walkthrough is August 22nd, correct?
Mhm.
All right.
So-
August 22nd?
Yes, so to trustee Leon's request, we did respond via email that we'd be happy to accommodate that. So Ms. Stevens will get back with us on the most appropriate date, and we will report that out to the board. The building facilities walkthrough has already been established for August 22nd, taking into consideration the construction and summer programming.
Great. Thank you.
All right, so if there's anything else, because if there's nothing else, I want to close out this meeting. Any community input on agenda items? Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting at 7:25?
Motion. Second.
Carol Seehoff is first, Leslie Quest is second. All those in favor? Aye, motion carries 7-0. We're now gonna go to the cell phone forum. No, we're gonna go.
At this time, as we transition for the cell phone meeting, if you have agreed to serve as a facilitator, you don't have to go just yet. We're going to open up with the presentation and then we can matriculate to the tables as needed. Okay, all right. Okay. I would ask that Ms. Stevens and our ex officio student board members would come and on this side because they are a part of tonight's program and that would help us to move forward expeditiously. And we also welcome our high school scholar, Miss Abigail Brown. You all can be seated until that time to be comfortable. So at this time, we're going to open our New York State bell-to-bell cell phone ban community forum and talk tonight about what does it mean for us here in Amityville. New York State schools have a huge charge before us to implement a policy for next school year. So Governor Hochul has a slogan, more learning, less scrolling, as it is her intent to create distraction-free schools. And so tonight, this presentation is taking place because a law has been passed. It is New York Education Law 2803, and it mandates that all school districts, charter schools, and BOCES must adopt policies prohibiting the use of internet-enabled devices, including smartphones, tablets, and smartwatches, throughout the entire school day on school premises. Student voice is important to us in our leadership here in Amityville, and we do understand that phones have meaning. And here representing that voice tonight is our ex officio student member, Ms. Sarai Mullins. Would you come?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarai Mullings, and I'm one of the student ex officio board members. As students, phones are part of our everyday lives, from taking a brain break to keeping in touch with our families. But we also know phones can be extremely distracting. Sometimes it's a group chat buzzing during a lesson or scrolling through social media instead of staying focused. But phones also help us feel safe, connected, and included, especially when things get overwhelming. As this new policy goes into effect across New York State, we want you to be a part of the solution. We understand that it's crucial to find a balance between focus and flexibility. We hope tonight students and families can shape what that looks like here in Amityville. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarai. And we'll talk a little bit about the background and the rationale. There was some research that Governor Hochul has cited, and she emphasized reduced distractions and improved focus. She has a quote Our kids succeed when they're learning and growing, not clicking and scrolling. She conducted a listening tour, and the report, More Learning, Less Scrolling, highlighted that device-free environments support mental health, focus, creativity without compromising safety. Supporters in education, anti-bullying, and mental health groups note benefits for social interaction, well-being, and a reduction in cyberbullying. In addition, there's further research around this bell-to-bell ban, and the evidence and rationale was piloted in districts like Shahari and Watervillette. They used similar bell-to-bell bans and have reported anecdotal gains in student engagement, discussion, and graduation rates. As it pertains to distracted learning, educators and researchers, including those from Syracuse University, say constant content interrupts attention span, impulse control, and the ability to focus. A global study around UK research cited Murphy 2016 showed banning phones boost exam scores by the equivalent of an extra hour of school per week, with strong benefits for underperforming students. What are some of the key provisions of Education Law 2803? It will go into effect the 25-26 school year. The scope of this is that the entire school day, including class periods, lunch, recess, hallway transitions, and study hall, there is a ban on cell phone use. It does not, however, necessarily apply after school during extracurricular or dismissal unless the district would choose to embed this in the policy. It applies to all schools, public, charter, and BOCES, K through 12 statewide. The devices, as we mentioned earlier, that are covered are smartphones, tablets, smartwatches, and laptops, unless they are school-issued devices, and any internet-enabled personal devices. There are some exceptions and some permissible use. Non-internet basic phones are allowed. School-provided devices are allowed. There are medical reasons which will allow a cell phone. Language translation, IEP accommodations, and any district-approved uses. So the district is required to adopt a local policy by August 1st. Consultation is required. So we are gathering with staff, students, community to hear your feedback. The policy, once approved, must be publicly posted on the website. And it must include how we're going to store the devices. Are we choosing lockers, pouches? Governor Hochul has said book bags are not a viable storage location. What are the disciplinary procedures without over-relying on suspensions? What is the input that we're hearing tonight from parents, students, and staff? And what emergency communication protocols will be put into place? As we stated earlier, the budget allocation for the state of New York for 2026 is $13.5 million. So there's a per student allocation. Our district receives approximately $10.90 per 7th through 12th grade students based on your 23-24 enrollment. And once again, Amityville's allocation is $14,639. Eligible expenses include storage systems, staff training, policy development, family communication, outreach materials, translation, language access services, and student education on responsible tech usage. We would like to present to you some scenarios tonight as a spotlight to learn about some of the incidences that our faculty, staff, students will face, and even parents will face during this transition to the cell phone ban. Ms. Stevens.
Thank you, Dr. Talbert. So as we prepared for the presentation, I had the privilege of working with Aaliyah, Sarai, and Abby to consider some of the points that we would look at in the forum. So as Dr. Talbert mentioned, some elements are part of the law and there's nothing that we can do about those elements, but we are seeking input on some of the elements that will be part of our district policy. In that discussion, these ladies and I talked about some of the things that they see in their classrooms and in the school, and we thought that a little bit of scenario role play would be appropriate to start people thinking about how they're going to contribute to these conversations. So our first scenario involves a teacher reporting that there is a student who would like to, a student who would like to use their cell phone. So here the teacher is Aaliyah. Raise your hand, Aaliyah. And she's going to explain what's going on, and then they're going to talk about the remedy.
So in this scenario, Sarai just took a test and she thinks she did a terrible job and she wants to be able to call her mom to take her home.
Can I have my phone, please? I want to go home. I just bombed my test. I feel under the weather. Let me go home, please.
Well, Sarai, I don't think you can call your mom, but if anything, I think you should maybe visit the main office and then you can talk to maybe a guidance counselor or something.
Thank you.
Welcome to the guidance office. How can I assist you?
I want to go home. Call my mom to pick me up, please.
Okay, we will be able to assist you in calling your mother to pick you up.
Thank you.
So we did recognize that students have a desire to use their phones for various purposes, some of which cause them anxiety, and that was something that we know the school is going to have a plan for, that students are very accustomed to being able to use their phone whenever they like to contact whomever they like. And so we wanted you to start thinking about how that plays into the policy. Our second scenario is a student who has been discovered to have a phone that was not placed in the area that it was supposed to be placed upon entering the building. So again, they're going to act out. The phone's been discovered and what's going to happen.
Let me record this fight real quick. Ding, ding, ding. I just got a text.
Does anybody know whose phone that was?
Not mine.
I think it was my phone.
Well, Sarai, you're not supposed to be having, your phone isn't supposed to be on in the first place. So if anything, I think you should turn it off right now.
Okay, I will.
So in this scenario, the phone was disrupting a little bit of instruction or assessment time. So part of the law is that students cannot be suspended specifically for having a phone. So considering what the options are in this scenario, the students thought a warning would be most appropriate, but something for the tables to consider is what is the progression if a student isn't following the rules of securing their phone where they're supposed to secure it. And our third scenario is a student who is using their phone during an altercation.
Wow, that was an entertaining fight. I should go and post this on Twitter or Instagram and get a whole bunch of views.
That's not allowed. You can get suspended for that. We're gonna have to confiscate your phone and suspend you for recording a fight.
So in this scenario, the actual use of the phone was part of an offense in the code of conduct. And so we're asking that you actually consider how that would play into the consequences for bringing or using your phone. So these were just 3 elements that we spoke about that were important to the students. And we thought that that would be just something to get you started thinking about things to consider when you're meeting with your groups. I thank these ladies very much for their acting skills and their partnership in thinking.
Thank you so much for being courageous and participating in those scenarios. We know they won't always play out just like that, but we have to prepare and get ready to assist our students and staff in this transition. So that's why we're here tonight. Governor Hochul's state ban reflects a broader public health approach to technology, emphasizing focus, mental health, social interaction, and a reduction in digital distractions. And so when we leave here tonight will be successful if we can gain clearer information and feedback from you around a rigorous bell-to-bell enforcement, clear storage systems, transparent discipline reporting, and effective stakeholder communication and buy-in. So at this time, we're going to take around 20 minutes for some roundtable discussions. And because our number is a little smaller on this evening, we're going to set up 3 tables. And we'd like to thank our Board of Education for being so gracious to serve as facilitators. They have talking points that they're going to share with you on this evening to guide the conversations. And AP. Here we go. And so in doing so, we're asking that we can all follow a certain set of group norms to keep the conversation on point. Being respectful, we'll stay focused on the guiding questions, to remain open-minded, to speak briefly and clearly, to assume positive intent, and let's have one voice at a time. So at this time, we're going to ask if the facilitator for table 1 would come, the facilitator for table 2, and the facilitator for table 3 would come. And so we're going to ask, if you're here in the audience, that 3 people would go to table 1, that 3 people would go to table 2, and that 3 would go to table 3. And let's see where that puts us. So it's open to everyone in the back. You can please come and join us. We want to hear your voice. And we can go up to 4 people at a table. So we have 3 tables in motion. And the time is now there's the clock. 7:45. So at 8:05, we will bring our table talk to a close, and at that time, we will ask for the reporter for each table to report out your 3 top takeaways at the close of the roundtable discussion. Thank you.
But where are we at the table? Kind of had a vote.
We were at a table, but we weren't like providing feedback. That's good parents. No, we're not getting them. Whatever you have. Again. What? For it. I think I did look at, because there was like, what's back and forth, like, what are we doing, you know? Just send it out. And add it on to it, all that. That's gonna be. I'm not even there. I'm just kind of like, right. No. Like how, you know, I felt like there were a bunch of people who didn't have any.
It may not be available that day, I'm okay.
We're going to ask that you take 2 minutes to wrap up, to get your 3 takeaways, and then we'll have the opportunity to hear from each table.
Monday is.
So I'll be like a 6 o'clock start.
Not that 6 o'clock.
It could be 6:30. Because it's not yet. The focus speaker. No, the policy committee, we have like. And this would just be my recommendation that will be the only policy we do that night, therefore we can get it fine tuned. And then we can sit and talk about what it is we want to meet at the policy. And let's come up with some dates for the possible. Get them down to the whole. I'll go check with Dr. Talbot for her. So we can maybe get the office. I can volunteer. Like Dawn. So we'll just legal have to look at it? They do. Okay, right, so it's just a matter of. I mean, there's like deadline stuff that has to be, you have to decide. So it's not. I don't know how long. Yeah, I would, how long, like a lot. So you know what, I would say, we need to get the policy, self-help policy. It's a priority. That's a priority. It's time. You can send it, but if you need more time. I'll send it, and then it's your last. Wait, paper? I'm like. He's done. Yeah, there's a lot. So 5 hours.
At this time, our tabletop talking, roundtable discussions will come to a close. At the tables that were in operation, conversations centered around the legal mandate, the scope of the ban, equity and student needs, storage solutions, communication access, enforcement and accountability, family and student education, teacher and staff considerations, public perception and pushback, and monitoring and review. Each table was not able to get through all 10 of those items, so we're going to hear from them on what they were able to discuss. And so at this time, we're going to ask table 1 if they would, if their reporter would take a moment to report out on their top 3 takeaways. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion, but if you can share with us the top 3 takeaways that the board should consider when developing this policy, that would be very helpful to us. If you speak loudly into the microphone, that would also help.
Okay, so from table number 1, our first takeaway was how these phones will be stored. 3 to 2, we said pouches versus our lockers. So that's our first takeaway.
Our next takeaway is the parent communication. So a lot of parents are concerned about, contacting their kids in case of emergencies. So
Did you all have a recommendation on the communication? Or a thought you'd like to share?
yes, would like to strengthen relationships between guidance and parents and encourage parents to call the office and email.
Thank you. Is there one more?
And our third takeaway point was under monitoring and review, ongoing adjustments and feedback tools. We suggested that if this is being implemented for September, maybe in October, have a meeting to see how things are going and see if anything has to be readjusted. Sooner than later. Don't wait for mid-year, but try to let 30 days pass and see if we can make adjustments then.
Thank you, table one. Now let's give them some encouraging feedback. Great job. Thank you so much for participating in tonight's roundtable. Table one, our facilitator was Trustee Juan Leon. Our recorder was our ex officio student board member, Sarai Mullins, and they teamed up to do the reporting out. Table two, our facilitator is Rich Snyder, our interim assistant super for business and finance, and our recorder is
Abigail Brown.
Abigail Brown, representing the student voice, and reporting out for us tonight is
Abigail Brown.
okay, Miss Abigail Brown.
Okay, our first point that we wanted to discuss was where does the line draw between after-school extracurricular activities and sports? We were questioning whether the law would go out to clubs or extra helps, or would it also go out to sport teams? Our second point was the bell schedule and how locker accessibility would be managed. Also, if it affects the bell schedule. Another point we were making was how would we be able to monitor the lockers to ensure that students are actually using it to store their phones? Yeah.
So I think that one of the, some solutions as it came to that, or some potential solutions. We talked about staffing, how we could utilize our staffing to make sure that when students were going to, let's say, go into the bathroom, they weren't sneaking trips to their lockers to either retrieve their phones or go and, do some scrolling instead of learning. So staffing was going to be very important in terms of monitoring as it relates to the locker accessibility and the impact on the bell schedule, that it's clearly, those expectations are clear. Every school building should have a schedule for when it is that students can go to their lockers, both at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, to make sure that instruction is not impacted. And then as relative to the flexibility of the phone use during non-academic after-school activities, that we were going to have to see if we could, create some framework where there is some flexibility, because as Ms. Brown said, right, sometimes those trips are long, coming back from one place to another, and to preclude students from being able to use their phones, especially if parents are kind of want to have a way to get in contact with them. They can let their parents know X, Y, or Z. There should be some type of mechanism where we don't completely, eliminate the use while in that setting.
One more point to add, we were wondering how the law affects mainly AM tech students, because in the morning, they're not in school. Well, they are in school and then they leave around 7:20, 7:30. So would they have to leave their phone in their locker, leave the school, come back and then retrieve it? Or would there be an exception made for students who have AM tech to take their phone outside of the school? Oh, also, oh, right, and PM Tech students. Another point was AirPods. AirPods, if you're in a certain distance to your phone, it can still connect to the phone and play music. So we were wondering if that would be taken into effect on whether the law goes out to Bluetooth connection devices. And that's it.
Okay, table 2. Thank you for giving us so much more to think about. Trustee Kretz, do you mind bringing your microphone or a microphone to President Johnson so that if they have questions right on the spot, they can ask them? Appreciate it.
Just a question for clarity for table number 2. So was your table advocating for the cell phones to be placed in the locker? That's the question I have for you.
Yes, we were advocating for that.
And would the cell phone be placed in a pouch inside the locker or just cell phone in the locker?
Yeah, just cell phone in the locker.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to further ask a clarifying question. Are you recommending cell phones in the locker for middle school or middle and high school?
Middle and high school.
Thank you. Thank you, table 2. And table 3, well, we didn't give a shout out to table 2. Table 3, our facilitator is Ms. Mary Stevens, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. And your recorder for the table is our student board member,
Ms. Aaliyah McQueen.
Aaliyah McQueen. And so reporting out,
One of our biggest takeaways was on storage. So if we were to collect it every period and then hand it back, that would be a huge distraction for students. And one of our biggest concerns is, what about students that come into school late or students that may start avoiding first period so they won't need to hand in their phones? And we were suggesting that maybe it could be collected first period and then picked back up last period. And then our other takeaway was for scope. So we were saying that phones should be allowed when it comes to after school activities like sports and clubs. However, for extra help in Regents review, they shouldn't be allowed because students should be focusing on that. And then our last one was, hold on parent partnership and clear communication to all. So we were suggesting that possibly there could be an assembly the first day of school or perhaps the first week to tell parents and students like why phones are being banned and how it will be beneficial for them.
Ms. McQueen, thank you. Does that conclude your reporting out?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, table 3. Let's encourage them for their participation. So I'm sure that we could remain at these tables and continue these conversations for the next hour to come, because there's so many components to this policy that we need to cover. And so if we were to summarize, and I'm looking at our president, Ms. Lisa Johnson, our first vice president, Trustee Leon, and our second vice president, Trustee Nering. When we think about what we've heard tonight, and to all of our trustees, of course, to provide your thoughts and feedback on what you've heard, when we think about key themes, insights, and recommendations that the board should consider at their next policy meeting, because the next board meeting is July 23rd. And that's our last board meeting for the month of July, and our policy must be adopted before August 1st so that Mr. Snyder and I can click the link, submit the policy, and pull down the $14,000 that will help in this initiative. We'd like to just sort of hear some of what you heard, some of the key themes, some of the insights, some of the recommendations that we've heard from our participants on tonight. anyone can just sort of chime in and we'll continue to take notes to help fill the gaps in the policy.
I do have a question.
Yes?
Table 1, your
Just speaking to the mic a little bit more.
your discussion around the preference over pouches rather than lockers. Can you just share with everyone the reason why? You know, the pros, the cons. I mean,
Hi, good evening. I would say the lockers are nice and all, but the thing is, they have access to the lockers. You know, they're gonna have their combinations and what. We don't have enough people to cover all the lockers, especially in the high school. We have over 1,000 students. So, you know, like the table said before is, the problem comes about some will not come to class, so you can't get you can't get their phones. So once they come in the building, they have to, use their pouches because it, like, like anything else, you always try to outbeat the system.
right.
And these children are well versed in trying to outbeat the system. So speaking as security, we have to, be vigilant on everything they do. You know, it's like we can monitor them on cameras, we can see them on the, wherever. But if they walk in late, because I've seen kids walk in at noon, you know, what are you gonna learn when you get there at noon? You're just trying to outbeat the system.
Right.
So with the going into the lockers, we can do that, but then all of them are not going to come in all at the same time. They're going to get messages or whatever. They're going to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, you know? So that's why I was saying, the pouches would be better because the minute you walk in, we put it in the pouch.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to jump in. Some of the key takeaways that I heard was the discussion of pouches versus the locker. But with the locker, the concern would be the bell schedule and accessibility to get to the locker. So we're looking at either pouches versus a locker. One key takeaway that I heard was, what about students who go to BOCES, whether they go in the morning or in the afternoon, how will they secure their phones in the morning? How will they get them back? I also heard about staffing, which is a sort of a question that I have, is that when it comes to staffing, who's going to be responsible to receive if, for example, it goes in the pouches? Who's going to be responsible for that task of making sure the phones go into the pouches? Let's take the high school, for example. You have all the buses that come in. How many people do you have to have at the door in order to get the phones in the pouches, get them secured, and for the students to get to the class on time? I heard about the Bluetooth and any wireless device, how they still can sync depending on where that phone is, but also heard about the importance of the parent and student communication and getting feedback maybe about a month after it's implemented. And also, another thing I heard was about for clubs and sports, that the students should be able to have their phones, but if they're going for extra help or Regents review, the phone should not be available. So that becomes a question of, how do they stay in the pouch? So we have to decide in the policy, do they stay in the pouch for clubs? I mean, for extra help in Regents review, or do they come out the pouch and go into the backpack? So that's something that we have to figure out with the policy committee. So those are some of the key things that I heard.
I have a question. So it's for students that don't have a cell phone. Should we have some sort of form that the parents fill out stating, my child does not have a cell phone, they're not required to hand anything in? Because thinking if we don't have something like that, you could have however many students claiming that they don't have a cell phone.
You were saying, the ones that are claim, well, that's why I was saying about communications. We, we have to, um, let the parents know. I agree with having the assembly and have all the parents here. Yeah, I mean, if it's two assemblies, because I don't know how many where, we're supposed to be comparable to a whole in the, at the high school. But I agree with the, have an assembly, you make sure you have all the parents and also the student there. Because you were saying about that they, trust me, there's nobody that has no cell phone. They all have cell phones. Trust me on this. So, that's what I'm saying. They're always trying to out game the system. It's like we all know that they all have cell phones.
So that should make it easier for you to know who doesn't
Right,
actually have
exactly.
one. Because if you have one or two, then you have a very small list of people who have that phone till that.
I guarantee you, some of them have even 2 and 3 cell phones. Right, so nobody can come in there and say they don't have a cell phone because every student so far that I've ever met in this high school since I've been here, all of them have cell phones. Right, so they're gonna try to game it by having their parents say, "Oh, no, I." If you're at 7-Eleven and you want to get something, or even better yet, when they miss the bus, they normally call for a cab. So how do you do it? You always have a cell phone.
Thank you. I believe we have some commentary from our trustees. Trustee Fanning?
I agree. At the secondary level, maybe sixth grade being the rare exception, they all have it, but perhaps at Park Avenue, that's when they're starting to get it, or at sixth grade, and that's where that's a gray space that would need to be navigated. Several of us have said in the past few weeks about the need to do follow-up forums, conversations to see how this policy is going, but in, listening to everyone's feedback and understanding how we're not going to know how it's going until it's actually implemented, I would advocate perhaps the second week of school, like halfway through September. I think this is going to be such a sea change for so many people that to think that we could wait until, October, November, I think we need to show being proactive right away that we understand we're piloting something. All of New York State is piloting something, and we're very committed to learning from, I don't even want to call them mistakes, but like the immediate lessons right away and pivoting right away before people get jaded. Like, oh, this policy is stupid. It's not working. I'm not going to listen. Like, I think there has to be a very clear and open, humble dialogue. We're trying to figure it out, and we have something on the calendar right away to do a follow-up. Like, okay, this is what we learned the first 2 weeks of school. Clearly, lockers didn't work, but pouches might, or, the reverse. But I would say, let's try to get something on the calendar early in the school year, second, third week, the latest in September for a follow-up to see, okay, what other pivots do we need to make?
I agree, and I would like to add on just really quickly. If we were to adapt the pouch system, what about the students who claim they lost their pouch, or what about damaged pouches? Would the school be offering like extras, and would that fit in the budget of buying pouches? That's just a question. All right, also for students who purposely damage but claim that they didn't. Oh, that's it.
Okay, any other?
I just have one concern. Well, I had a lot of concerns, but you guys have really done a great job. Communication of parents calling the school district. I know there's a concern with just getting through presently, but now we're going to have many parents calling the school district for various reasons to talk to their child, and vice versa, I think also. So do we limit to emergencies, or can they call anytime whenever they want to deal with something? I mean, that's something, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on the women and men at the telephones. So that's going to be another concern. Someone had suggested doing I think the guidance counselors. I don't know what table that was. One, you talked about the good guidance counselors. Are they going to have enough time to field these phone calls? So,
Right, so if I can just also add on to that, one of my concerns or our concerns as a table is exactly that. Our secretary is going to be inundated with calls, especially when it happens every year, maybe a blackout, maybe there's police activity going on in the area, the school goes into lockdown. When the school goes into lockdown, parents want to know that their kids are safe. So at that moment, even though there may be no imminent threat, you are going to receive a massive influx of calls that I'm not sure if not only us, but all districts are going to tackle this. If they're going to be able to answer the calls and calm the fears of the community. So I suggest we have to work even harder than we have before to get parents comfortable with Parent Square, with our website, because the school district in situations like that, a blackout or police activity, the school is on lockdown, there has to be a way for the district to mass disseminate information, and it has to get to the parents. So there has to be a way to do that.
And to check one quick thought. I'm sorry to bother
Yes.
you all. But as the person who runs the after-school home instruction program, this is coming right at me. I can see it coming. But quick thought, these things we know from research in adolescence change its brain chemistry. That makes it a drug. We are now throwing 1 million or so Long Island, New York State students into cold turkey. Has Amityville brought in health professionals, social workers to give their input as to what and how to implement a policy as well? Because we are going to see issues, guaranteed. So I know that's not something on the list or so, but that is something that certainly needs to be considered.
thank you.
I just want to weigh in. This has been a very helpful discussion, and we've summarized the points very well. There was one topic that we haven't really discussed, and which might be helpful if we have a few extra minutes to talk about, like, the response to non-compliance. So built into the policy and the code of conduct will be, what do we do now when the students have their phones out? And how are we going to implement that response? So I know of school districts that take the phones into the main office and require that the parents come and pick it up in order to get the phones back. So that might be something for this room of folks to think about, the reality of that, like the cell phone in the main office. And do we require that the parents have to come between 8 and 2? Or other thoughts?
Feel like that's an effective deterrent, but I could see that being an issue for parents that want to monitor when their kids are leaving school and walking home, or don't have a home phone and want a way to contact their children when they're at home or before they return from work. So I could see that causing a lot of issues in that matter.
Agreed, but I think the inconvenience of picking up the cell phone would be interesting to get the buy-in from the home, from the parents, that you can't have your cell phone out.
The only thought that I would add to that is that maybe the first time would be sort of, the phone would be taken at the end of the school day, it's given back to the student, and they're given a warning. So maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 warnings. And then the parent is informed that if the phone is taken on the 3rd time, then you're gonna have to come to the school to pick up the phone. So therefore, that way the parent knows that by the 3rd time, they're gonna have to come pick up the phone. I think the biggest challenge would be, is getting the phone from the kid. And then, I think that would be the biggest challenge, getting the, because if the kid does not give up the phone, then what happens? That's the only, I don't know, I'm not in the building, so I don't know what happens when the.
In that case, would escalate to, we discussed insubordination. It just escalates. So really the critical piece, as was reported out, is to stop the phones from even getting into the building, much less into the classroom. Once they're in the classroom, it becomes a power struggle. That's what needs to be avoided, is that power struggle. 'Cause then it is a distraction for all the students in that classroom. Because now all the students are watching that power between that teacher and that student over a phone. That's why the parent part, we have to have the clear communication. We don't have a lot of time to put this together and get it out to the community. I mean, I guess the parents, but also with the assemblies, the students say, this is why it's not being done punitively, but here's the evidence of why we're doing this, and explain it. They say, okay, now it makes sense. And when I would tell students honestly, in my own sarcasm, yes, God forbid you all have to sit there and turn around and actually talk to each other without a phone. They actually look at each other's face and say, oh, that's what you look like. Okay. So I know you're nodding your head back. You know what I'm talking about, Carol. You're not.
I was just gonna pick back on that. I agree with you, Mr. O'Brien. The, the cell phones cannot reach the classrooms. It is just going to be a major problem. You're going to have a lot of defiant children. And there's got to be a way that we can collect the cell phones before they hit the classrooms. Because the other thing is, this can't totally be put on the back of classroom teachers when you have 20-some-odd kids coming into a classroom and you're starting a lesson and you've got some kids walking in late, and then who's got a cell phone and they don't want to, give it up. It's going to be a major problem. Those cell phones have to be collected before they hit the classroom.
I also have something to add on to that. Referencing to like the airport, when they ask you to walk through security, they like have scanners to detect if you have like any electronics on you. I was wondering if the school could like purchase that to like, maybe, this is like crazy, but like to scan students if they have their cell phones on them so that it doesn't reach the classrooms. That's something that I just thought of.
So I think that it's very important for us to actually be pragmatic when we are thinking about this. Stopping cell phones from getting into the classrooms, I think that we should really be focusing on what our responses are going to be, and think about it from, just as Mr. Cohen said, right? It is going to be somewhat of a withdrawal, right? We were able to go through school and make it fine without having a cell phone all the time. But, these students, many people as a whole are struggling would struggle by not having their cell phones on them. So I think that that's an opportunity for us to think about how is it that we're going to address it. Remember, you can't suspend or give a child, I guess, any type of in-school suspension or anything else for having a phone. It's the conduct that it is that would have a consequence, not so much just having a phone. So let's just say that a student does have a phone and for whatever reason, they don't want to give it to you. You may not in that moment be able to say, all right, well, I'm going to call the office or whatever the case may be. You have to basically rely on, the skills that it is that you have learned and that you've cultivated as being a teacher. Not complying over, not handing over a cell phone is not worth disrupting the learning environment in the classroom unless that student becomes a distraction. And then you have to rely on all of the other things that you have. It's not like this is replacing what we have. This is in addition to what it is that we have. So if a student doesn't hand over their cell phone, you ask them for their cell phone. If they refuse to do that, if you have the ability to either call the main office or call guidance, I would prefer to, call like the social worker or something like that, so that they can have a conversation, right? Because we don't know the reason why it is that that student is reluctant to hand over their phone. So I think that if we kind of like look at this as we should be looking at other things as, you know, therapeutic and kind of like stages to any type of consequence that they have to adhere to. I think that that's going to help as well, because then parents are also going to have trust that when we're taking the cell phones, it's not that it's not necessarily a punishment, it's the law. And then how we are addressing these issues with them. We have to communicate to the families and the students that this is the law, you can't have it here. And if you're not going to comply, this is what it is that happens. So I get that part, but we should actually be using our behavioral tiers to address this, even though it's a law, just like we do anything else. You know, I understand that it shouldn't be, if no singular staff member should, shelve the burden of doing this. It has to be collective, and we all has to be clearly defined of what all of our responsibilities are.
Thank you. I would just like to read an excerpt from the policy. Madam President, it has gone through 2 readings. The cell phone policy, 1 reading. So it's gone through 1 reading, and as of the 1 reading, this is what it says regarding enforcement consequences and reporting. For students out of compliance with this policy, the device will be held in the school office until the end of the school day. And then the board has to decide what happens next. So it says the first time this happens, the student may retrieve the device and the parent will be notified. For subsequent instances, the parent or caregiver must retrieve the device. Further instances will result in the device being held in the school office daily for longer periods of time. So the board has to decide how they are going to enforce when the device is discovered at school. So the feedback that you've given, the board is going to take that back into consideration and have to complete that portion of the policy. But as of the first reading, that's what the first reading says, how it will go thus far. Is there any other feedback regarding any of the items that we have discussed on tonight?
So if we do implement the pouches, I'm wondering how long it would take in the morning and in the afternoon to like unlock everyone's pouch. So I think that's something to note.
One of the discussions that we were just having today or this week, the number of magnets that would be required, we would need to figure that ratio out and where those magnets would be placed in terms of entrances to the building so that students can just come through with the pouch, and tap the magnet to secure their pouch if that's the way it's going to go. And as they're exiting, so that there will not be a bottleneck and the flow of traffic will be able to go in and out of the buildings as necessary, and so that security and additional staff can be identified to monitor that process as students enter and exit. Trustee Leon, you had comment? Oh, okay.
And also, like, would teachers have access to open the pouches and close them?
The policy would need to decide. I've heard some say, oh, let's not let the phones get to the classrooms, and others are saying maybe first and last period could be options.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was also wondering one last thing, if the law extends to bus rides, would that include morning rides and afternoon rides? And if so, how would that be ensured that students have their phones collected on the bus? It won't?
So when they get on the bus, the phone would be out of the pouch. So it would not be on the bus, the pouches.
Can I ask a question of the three students who are here? Because I feel like the biggest decision that needs to be made that's like a shot in the dark is pouches versus just storage in the lockers. How do you feel most, because you guys are all in high school students, what would they vote for? Would they rather put it in the locker or a pouch?
They would rather pouches because they're allowed to like have it on them instead of having it in their locker. Also for mischievous reasons, pouches as well. You can, someone will find a way to open the pouch, someone will cut it open. So they would most likely lean toward the pouches.
Okay, so, okay, that's one answer. Can Sarai and Aaliyah also?
I also feel like lockers wouldn't work because I know for me, I forget my combination all the time and I would go on my phone to find it. So I think pouches would definitely be best.
If you want to enforce it better, pouches. If you want to enforce it easier, lockers.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Who would be responsible for the pouches? Would the students be taking it home and then have to put it back in the pouch when they arrive at school, or would the school be holding on to the pouches? My thought is if the student was responsible for it, if they come to school and don't have their pouch, then the school would then hold their phone in the office because the student did not have their own pouch. But if the school is responsible for the pouches, then if 10 people broke their pouches yesterday, then there's a random 10 students that don't have a pouch. What do we do with those phones?
That would certainly need to be added to the policy if pouches will be the storage system. In our conversations with some other schools, the students do take the pouch home. There are some schools that have the pouches and barrels upon entry. Student takes the pouch, put the phone in the pouch, and secures it. There are some schools where the children walk in with their phone in the pouch or place it in the pouch in front of security and then secure it.
Another drawback to if the students took the pouches home, they would have chances to kind of doctor them and make it easier for them to get into them when they're in school.
I also don't think bringing pouches home would work because, I mean, kids lose their homework all the time. So like, what's to say they won't lose the pouch right away or lose it and then the school have to pay for another one?
But if the consequence of not having your pouch is your phone goes into the office all day, you might be more inclined to keep that pouch.
Yeah, but on
Can I just-
this note that the high school students, I don't know about the middle school, but in the high school students, a lot of them even forget to bring their Chromebook to school and they leave it at home. So if they leave a pouch, that's their phone is inside it, because isn't it locked though? So they would unlock it, they still take they would take the pouch home.
Well, that's one decision that we would have to decide as a board. Do they put the phone in the pouch when they come into school, or do they take the pouch home?
Okay, because I know in the high school now, we have a security guard and a monitor that the kids walk in the building and they have to show their ID to get in. So I don't know if you're gonna have the pouches there when they come in, and then the ones that's late come to the front door.
Yes, I also agree with that. Also, a suggestion is like we have to line up to scan our IDs to get in the morning. So a suggestion would be maybe having a bucket of pouches and not have personalized pouches so that a student can come in, grab a pouch, put their phone, and then leave to go to class. And when they're leaving the school, they can unlock the pouch and leave it in the bin. So no personalized pouches, mainly just a bucket for the whole school.
Yeah, I just add something. I'm sorry. But having worked in the city for many years, when New York City instituted their cell phone ban about 10 years ago, what the schools did is they hired all these companies sprang up out of nowhere. that would take care of cell phone collection for the schools. Just a thought. Maybe the funding that the state is providing could be put towards a private company. You're going to see them popping up all over the place in the next month or two, believe me. So something to consider. Maybe that can be, let's say, jobbed out to a private company. Makes it very convenient. Just a thought.
I just wanted to add a quick note about logistics. We keep saying like turning in the phone to the main office, but I want to consider like who is operating the system in the main office. We've already acknowledged that our secretaries are probably going to have a higher volume of calls to take on. Will a full administrator have to take on this position like each period? Does it rotate for administrators? Do they take on the responsibility of calling home for parents? Like, I think this will take administrators maybe away from their other responsibilities, and we might have to consider that this almost becomes like a full-time duty for one of the assistant principals or administrators. Again, we keep saying main office. I just want to make sure that we know that there is a human that's going to be having to be in that main office to take control of this, and we can't really put that on secretaries. Yeah, just a thought, because I think there'll be a high volume at the beginning of the year as we like are exploring this. Kids are testing boundaries and teachers are sending students to the main office. It will probably need a full person involved in this.
I'd like to thank you all so much for your feedback. It's been meaningful to us to consider in our next steps. Each facilitator has a QR code at the table, and we're also putting it on the main screen. We're going to ask if you would take a moment to scan the QR code. It will give us additional feedback in a Google form that we can also take back that will allow us to review some of your additional thoughts that have been shared or may not have been shared as of now. So let's take the next 5 minutes to scan and give us some feedback in written form. Thank you. For those who have joined us live stream, you can scan the QR code that is on the screen and provide your feedback to us as well. In addition, we will make the Google form available on the website tomorrow for anyone who would like to give additional comments via the Google form for the board to consider. Facilitators, we want to be sure to get the tabletop recording sheet, your 3 takeaways. We want to make sure that Sarai and Aaliyah can collect those back from you. And on behalf of the Board of Education, thank you so much for taking time out of your summer schedule to join us for tonight's cell phone policy forum. But everyone get home safe. And the sign-in sheets, please make sure you sign in with your tables, and Sarai and Aaliyah will have the sign-in sheets and the recording sheet. Thank you. Fantastic. You guys did great.